Greg Banks here. It is our first podcast on Middays in Raystown Country. Of course, the show that went live back in March. That's right, Monday through Friday from 10 to noon. We've decided to kind of revamp the show by bringing you, well, news and information from around Huntingdon County. Weekdays as we are able to do that, and also weekly. You'll see a podcast up on our website front page for your listening convenience from time to time throughout the week. So this is a place to find Middays in Raystown Country. When we do interviews, as we've done in the past with some of the notables from around the county, like, for instance, last week we talked with Jeremy Ulrich, who was telling us about the Huntingdon 3-on-3 that happened over the weekend. In addition to that, we spoke with Gary Weld, who is the Huntingdon president of the Little League, and, of course, that new softball league with the girls. And Nick Miller, he joined us as an interviewee, I should say, on Middays in Raystown Country, talking about the Gearhart land that was basically stolen from them with that Sunoco pipeline deal. Well, those are ongoing stories, at least most of them. We'll be talking with those folks again from time to time. So when you want to hear a conversation with people from Huntingdon County, interviews, you want to just come to our podcast on the front page. We'll date these things and, of course, recycle them and update them as need be, as opposed to streaming a live show every day for 2 hours, which, quite frankly, I ran out of time. Yeah, we got kind of busy doing some other things. As we're putting together live schedules, by the way, for high school sports. In addition to that, we're looking at high school graduation coming up shortly in June. Mayfest, yeah, that's coming up at the end of the month. That'll actually be live on the Air Network for those of you outside the area that may want to just tune in and hear us talk with a lot of folks in downtown Huntingdon. That's coming up Saturday, April the 30th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll be able to bring you some live music from the stages, as well as talking with people and telling you what's going on in downtown Huntingdon throughout the course of Mayfest. We've had Linda DeArmid on. You'll see some of the interviews with her on our front page as we talk to Linda, maybe some of the groups that are involved in bringing you Mayfest. Again, the 2016 version coming up later on this month. Saturday, April the 30th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., downtown Huntingdon. They basically block off all the streets from 8th Street down to 3rd Street there on Washington Street. And, man, it's going to be a hell of a day. It's going to be lots of fun. So you want to just click on Tune In button, which you'll see just to the right of the front page here at the airnetwork.net on our website. Click on that, and that's when we stream live. We basically have some programming running 24 hours a day. So you'll want to tune in for that. And as I mentioned, from time to time, just come to our front page and look for those updated podcasts listed as Middays in Raystown Country. We'll no longer bring you a live show 2 hours a day, but we'll have a show for you and at your listening convenience whenever you want to listen, tune in on the front page. Does that make sense? Okay. Even some of the news stories from around the country and around the world. For instance, the Pittsburgh Pirates opening up their season this previous week. They took on the Cardinals, beat them in 3 games, and then played the Reds over the weekend, winning Friday's game, I believe it was, and then Saturday, But, of course, as things go, not a bad season opener for the Pirates, who were up against, obviously, traditionally cold, windy weather up north here. The past weekend, again, we saw some snow. Many of my friends called it the Sap Bender. Oh, yeah, that's how they referred to the snow that we got over the weekend in Huntingdon County. I imagine up in Cambria County, my old homestead, Johnstown, they probably got a little bit of snow there, too. But if this is the Sap Bender, then when is the onion snow? Does one become before the other? Oh, I don't know. I just know that the first day of trout season is coming up on Saturday, April the, 16th. And that is, by the way, also the opening of Little League Baseball officially in downtown Huntingdon, there at Blair's Field. The kids will be converging on Saturday morning, probably around noon, getting set for a parade from AGY, which is the old fiberglass plant there on Washington Street. And they'll be marching all the way down Washington, down to the baseball field. Now, coming up Saturday, which is Saturday, April 16th, they will also honor the Little League All-Star team that won the state championship back in 1966. So this will be their 50th anniversary They've invited many of those players to come back, including yours truly, who was an alternate on that team. And I actually made I made the All-Star team in 67. I think we won the districts that year, but didn't get much further in 67. But in 66, those guys went all the way to the Little League State Championship. They won that. And I believe they got beat in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, one Saturday afternoon back in 66 in the regionals. You know how they play the regionals? Like, you'll see some of these regional games now on ESPN, like maybe out of Connecticut or California. Well, that's what Huntingdon did. They played in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'll never forget it. And that was basically the end of the road for the 66 Huntingdon Little League All-Stars. All right. Hey, meanwhile, some of the programming ideas that we have coming up here on the AirNet, of course, you know, we do live sports talk every Monday night through the school year. We usually break camp maybe around late April, maybe early May, because we like to get out of the studio and kind of kick back and do some fishing and go to some ball games. But anyhow, either way, you can tune in live 7 to 8 Monday nights. Listen to Monday Night Sports Talk when we bring some guys in via Skype, guys like Dave Shannon out of the Altoona area. Sometimes he's up in Erie fishing and he'll join us on Skype. Also, Chad States when he has time out of Huntingdon. Jeff Speck was joining us out of Huntingdon as well, but he's kind of a busy guy these days. He's back in radio doing a 3 to 7 show there on Honey. And then Jimmy Tide joins us from Hamburg. That's down around Philadelphia when time permits for him. Otherwise, it's just Dave and I kind of kicking back, talking about local, regional, and national sports. We just talked briefly about the Pirates last week, the NCAA tournaments, the basketball championship game. What else did we talk about? We talked about Steelers, you know, upcoming Steelers draft, if you will. And we talked basically about anything. You can join us. You can always call us at 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845 for Monday Night Sports Talk. We rebroadcast that live streaming, by the way. Once you click on that tune-in button, Monday evenings we go live 7 to 8. It's back on the air sometime around 10 to 11, and then throughout the week. And we obviously put it up on our front page as well as a podcast, which you can listen to, again, at your convenience. Now, the cool thing about what we do here at the Air Network is because we have this website, we are able to stream some events live. For instance, we had mentioned Mayfest will be downtown 9 to 5, coming up Saturday, April 30th. We want to take a couple of Huntingdon Bearcat baseball games and also do some live softball games for the girls. And we'll let you know on our front page what those dates are, and then simply the afternoon of the game, click on Tune In. That's right, on the Tune In button, and we'll be streaming it live from those remote locations, whether it's in Huntingdon, Tyrone, Mount Union. Most of the games, I will tell you this, will be in Huntingdon because that cuts down on our travel expenses as we still look for supporters of those games this spring, along with the Mayfest broadcast, graduation, probably a candidates night, which I think is coming up April 15th, and we'll have more information about that on our front page as well. For the 81st Legislative District, those candidates including Rich Irvin, who is the incumbent, Marianne Buckley, who is on the Republican Party, and also Rick Rogers out of Mount Union running on the Democratic Party, and they are running for, again, the State Legislative District 81, or the 81st Legislative District. All right, so once we do that, we'll be able to stream that live from Huntingdon Middle School, I believe it is, and that's coming up this Friday. So we'll have details on whether or not we'll be able to do that. If we do, we'll also put the rebroadcast up on our front page. So it's pretty convenient if you think about how we operate things here at the airnetwork.net. We can do it live, and we can also put it up on our page. Whether it's on the front page or it goes directly to the podcast, we'll let you know, and then you can just tune in at your convenience. And it really is a luxury for the players, whether the football players, basketball, wrestlers, or even baseball or softball players, to go back up there later because we archive those games and those kids can listen to it later. Or in the case of graduation coming up on June the 3rd from Huntingdon High School, if we bring that to you live, you can also go back up and listen to that at your convenience. So it really is a convenient platform. We are also in the midst of talking with a semi-pro hockey team. I don't want to give you too much information on that because we're still in negotiations. And so we just don't do things locally. We do them regionally and probably even nationally. If somebody in Florida says, hey, could you hook us up? We're doing a baseball game here or maybe a high school event, and there's enough money in it for us in order to, defray our expenses. We'll do that. And we have the technology that we really don't have to get on the road a lot. We contract with the announcers. If they have Skype, they send it back to our studio, and bada bing, they're on the air. So all the options that we have, whether they are rebroadcast, live streaming, we put them, archive them on our front page or under podcasts or even sports broadcasts. They're always up there for you to listen to. Now, we don't get into controversy. We originally started Middays in Raystown Country to really promote and talk about Huntingdon County, whether it's about the economy, socioeconomics, maybe events coming up, maybe take a look at the political scene, or in the case of this situation with the Sunoco pipeline coming through somebody's property, we had Nick Miller on to talk to us, and we'll probably even do some man-on-the-street interviews and post those from time to time. So our podcast will really be about a half an hour long, or perhaps it could be shorter. But if we have interviews, as we have had in the past few weeks, we'll interview those people and just put them here on our podcast, and we can also put them up there individually as well. Now, one of the interesting interviews we did just recently, again, we spoke with Nick Miller. Now, Nick Miller is also a musician, by the way, and I don't know if somebody told me he's a soccer coach, too, with Tyrone High or something, but he's a musician. But in this case, he was one of the people that was at the courthouse during the rallies or the protests regarding the Sunoco pipeline situation where Judge George Zanuck allowed Sunoco to go and actually take over some of the land there at the Gearhart property in Union Township. And I know many media folks have been trying to get hold of Your Honor, George Zanuck, for a comment, and I'm not so certain he can't. Well, I'm not so certain he can actually speak to that particular case or how that works, but I know that Channel 10 reached out to him, also Channel 6. But to give you an example of some of the interviews that we've done, let's pull up one here with Nick Miller just recently. We'll go halfway into the interview here just to give you an idea of the quality when we talk with these people on the phone, or many of these people we sit down and talk to them face-to-face and then bring it back to the studio and run it live here, or in this case, put them up on these weekly podcasts. Here's Nick Miller talking about the Sunoco pipeline that went through the Gearhart property here recently in Huntingdon County.
The case of big industry versus the people, and I think people are just sick of it.
Yeah, I wonder if we were to sit down with George Zanuck, the judge in Huntingdon County, if he would actually tell us what his mind thought was in this local jurisdiction that he kowtowed to a large corporation like Sunoco. Have you heard any buzz on anybody who's been able to talk to George about this situation? And,
Yeah, I mean, I've just heard, through the rumor mill that he's been under a lot of pressure from Sunoco, but I don't know that. I don't know that for a fact.
Well, you would think that he would be a homer. He would be a guy who would basically stand up for the local constituents and say, not in my county, and
exactly. That's and a lot of people have said that he is that he is that type of guy, and they're surprised that he made that type of decision. And I would love to sit down with him and have a chat and sort out why this decision was made. I mean,
yeah, he obviously had a real choice in this situation, and then to get the sheriff's office involved, now it becomes more of a... We were talking with, again, Nick Miller on our Middays in Raystown Country program, by the way, which was live Monday through Friday from 10 to noon, and, of course, with the rebroadcast. But now we're putting everything primarily up on our podcast, so any subsequent interviews that we do in the future, not only will we do them on our podcast, and you can hear them there every other day or so, but you can also go up and find, for instance, on our front page, it'll say Nick Miller interview. All right, and that was just one of the interviews we did last week. We also talked with Jeremy Ulrich, who is a teacher at the Huntingdon Middle School, who decided to start a 3-on-3 basketball tournament in Huntingdon, which took place over the weekend. Matter of fact, on Saturday, April the, was that the 9th? Yeah, okay, April the 9th at Huntingdon High School and Middle School simultaneously. He had several divisions that were involved in that with girls and boys and also adults. And, of course, he updated us on what the tournament was all about, of course, who it would benefit, which it was the Huntingdon Bearcat basketball, boys and girls, and also the Huntingdon Community Center. So there again, talking with Jeremy Ulrich about the Huntingdon 3-on-3 basketball tournament, the first one ever in Huntingdon. And weekends were always slow, so this is a good way to promote Huntingdon, and obviously it gives somebody a sports story, too.
Absolutely.
Hey, let me ask you this. You mentioned the adult men's and women's division here. What age group now? Because I'm 61. I'm a mat rat. I wrestled for Huntingdon High School back in the 70s. Yeah, but here's the deal. There's probably guys my age that still think they can play. What's the cutoff age-wise?
Cutoff is till you're in a nursing home.
Yeah.
Anybody that is still in high school will be considered the high school division. Even if your basketball season ended, we're still going to count that as the high school division.
Okay.
But any age from post high school, just graduated last year up until. Yeah. If you want to throw the walker or the cane away and want to come out and run a little, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. That was Jeremy Ulrich. We interviewed him last week live on Middays in Raystown Country. Of course, we are now taking the live show and putting it up as a podcast so that you can go back there and listen to these every week. We don't have to invest, I guess we're investing like 10 hours a week doing live programming, stuck in the studio, and not really getting a lot of response. And a lot of that's because people kind of want to listen, at their leisure, as opposed to like, I've got to be there to hear this live at 10 o'clock. I mean, that's just how our lives have changed so drastically over the years because of the technology. So we really felt, why do a live show in this case? Instead, we'll put it up as a podcast every week or maybe every few days and include some of these interviews. I have a guy by the name of John Smith, by the way, coming on with me next week. We're going to do a interview with him. We had him on a show out of Johnstown years ago, and he's working on a television pilot, and he's been working on this for some years. It's called Just Starting Over, or I believe it was Starting Over, okay, about an old boxer, if you will, and somebody that grew up in Huntingdon. Now, obviously, some of this is fiction, but some of it really is true about John's life. So we're going to talk with him, and you'll see a podcast up here later this week. Basically, we'll have the date on the podcast, Middays in Raystown Country, and then John Smith. So you'll be able to go up there and listen to that at your leisure on the front page, and then within a couple of days, we'll just have it under podcast, so you'll always have a chance to go back and listen to these interviews. And it's all about people in Huntingdon County. For instance, Swigert Museum, they'll be opening up soon, if not already. I understand they also bought an adjacent hotel to them, so we'll be talking with those folks to find out what that whole thing is about. Like, why would they buy the hotel? Are they going to try to work hand in hand with the museum so that when people come in to visit Herbie the Love Bug and some of the other great things they have at that Swigert Museum there on 22, whether or not they'll have overnight guests. We want to talk to Mel Isaac from Isaac Museum on top of Stone Creek Ridge. A lot of people have never been there locally. And what's interesting is, they bring in people from all over the world on these bus tours to Stone Creek Ridge and to Isaac's Museum. Now, I've not been there yet. I did drive up one day, recently. They weren't open. So we plan on going back up and maybe sitting down with Mel face-to-face, getting an interview, and then putting it up as a podcast. So you see the synergies that can be created, put the podcast and basically the show up on the front page. And then when you do live streaming, like, maybe a sporting event, graduation, or in the case of Mayfest, which will be live from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., coming up in a couple of Saturdays. On Saturday, April 30th, you can listen to it live. And then we'll archive that later. We'll put bits and pieces, or maybe the whole thing up there. But I don't see us putting up 8 hours. No. We'll kind of choose bits and pieces of that. So that's the luxury of being able to do a podcast versus trying to do a daily show. It's cool people have time to call you up, but we just don't have those numbers. And we also have many ways that people can listen to the Air Network. As you well know, if you have a laptop or a desktop, you just go to www.theairnetwork.net, and you'll see our front page pop up. And you can kind of navigate between the front page, podcast, sports broadcast, that type of thing. Or if you happen to see the tune in button to the right there of the front page, click on that, because there's always something live streaming, whether it's Gaither Family Homecoming Radio, which we operate that and run that from 4 until 6 every day, Monday through Friday, or our weekend programming, like the Money Pit, which is sort of like a do-it-yourselfer program. And believe me when I tell you, all these programs are available for underwriting, meaning we could, if you have a company, we could probably do a deal like for $50 a month. We'll put you on all the programs. We'll mention you. And, of course, even when we do our live broadcast, whether it's a sporting event or maybe Mayfest, we'll include you in that as well. So that's kind of cool, And we can make that happen. And we'll tell you more about how you can underwrite our programming coming up in the next few weeks and the next few months right here on the airnetwork.net. Meanwhile, just wanted to stop by, bring you our first podcast as we debut our podcast and move from the live program known as Middays in Raystown Country. It's still Middays in Raystown Country, although to you might want to tune in at midnight and hear it on our front page. So just to give an example of what we can do and how we'd like to help you get your word out, whether it's about your business, your group, your organization. We'll be touting things that are coming up soon, as we mentioned, Mayfest. Don't forget, we have the Fresh Food Express distribution. It's a free food distribution coming up on April 27th. That happens the fourth Wednesday of every month at 512 Washington Street at the Huntingdon County Drop-In Center. Those folks will be there to help you maybe load up boxes of food, which is free of charge, by the way. So just stop in and get signed up. Everybody basically that lives in Huntingdon County, and that's one of the requirements, you must be a resident of the county in order to partake of that program. Now, just to give you an idea, if you've never been there, basically we will have produce there. Who knows? It could be big heads of cabbage, maybe a bunch of potatoes. We could have, like coming up in the summer, carrots, maybe squash. That's what you get outside, and then when you come in the building, we have all kinds of stuff there. Anything from crackers to candy to sodas, to beans, corn, you name it, we have it. And the idea is we get this from the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank in Harrisburg. They bring a truck up from their warehouse, and we distribute it for them at the Huntingdon County Drop-In Center. So make note of that date. That's April the 27th. That's the next fresh food distribution or Fresh Express food distribution at the Huntingdon County Drop-In Center, the fourth Wednesday of every month. And those are kind of things that we can talk about here on the program and on the podcast coming up throughout the week. So just keep that in mind. Hey, meanwhile, thanks for tuning in to this podcast, our first one for Middays in Raystown Country. We'll do it again coming up later on this week. Look for the updates and the dates on the front page. And listen to our live streaming as you click on TuneIn here on the airnetwork.net. Thank you, everybody. Have a great one. We'll be back in the next couple of days. So long.